You know, XRP has had gains of a little more than 1,000% from the start to the peak this cycle, and still some are bitching their asses off. But, great news for you guys who are complainers out there, XRP ain't done. If history is to rhyme with itself, and if arguably the very many chart analysts who have very stellar track records are right, and this cycle is not over, and the last portion of this entire thing is still to come, oh my god, numbers go up not a little bit, like a lot. And there's excellent historical reason to believe that that's the most likely thing to happen. And there are so many reasons, and I am going to highlight them. I'll tell you, I'm going to share a few different XRP chart analysts on here, and there are so many analysts out there that have been calling shots all this cycle, who have said that XRP is going to go, and broadly speaking, it is that sooner rather than later not only XRP is going to go, but we are going to see some double-digit price action. And even in the interim, regardless for the ones that think that maybe it'll be a month or two, even still, that's more or less, that's kind of a type of a short time frame, just in my view. They're still talking about XRP getting into price discovery, and even though they're talking about it in the short term being $4 or $5 and going beyond that. But first, let me say, I have no background in finance. I don't give financial advice. And you most certainly shouldn't buy or sell this because of anything I say, right? Just a crypto hobbyist that posts YouTube videos about crypto stuff for fun, no more, no less. It's Saturday, May 24th, 2025, 44:20 p.m. Central Time, my time. Well, this is a holiday weekend, so don't be surprised if volume is a little light. And to climax, maybe for a few days we won't see as many fireworks. And I know the United States, it's only one country, but it's the biggest capital market in the whole planet. So it is simply a fact that what happens in the United States, very much so, in these crypto markets, is going to send ripples through the rest of the investing universe. So again, XRP $2.34, now Bitcoin $108,909. So flattish over the last day. And then there's this post, and this is just so interesting. I mean, this is the perfect example of how certain people just don't seem to be able to zoom out and see the bigger picture here. Not charting guy, he's making sense. So what he wrote here the other day, from the lows of April 7th, when the market stopped, from the lows of April 7th, most alts have been outperforming Bitcoin by a fair margin, he said. Investing is all about return on investment and timing entries, and not about price topping new highs. Okay, well, one small asterisk right there. Cause I believe in the concept as well. There's always gonna be about what he claims to do for a certain type of person, such as for someone like me who is interested in long-term holding. Timing doesn't mean jack. It's about buying, no matter what the price action is. It's a question of how to get that dollar cost averaging. It's long-term, large exposure, but I'm being somewhat fussy when I say that. I like that he's sharing this info. And so he's pointing out that, from that point, Bitcoin is up 50%. You remember, it was supposed to be the end of the world, except of course it wasn't ever. Ethereum is now up 92%. No surprise, that price has been in the gutter. And like I say, it's the same thing that happened with XRP last year because XRP was at historic lows against Bitcoin, and frankly, the whole crypto market. And I suggested that in other similar such cases, that seems to be the specific time frame, if we're speaking in general terms, when XRP had on any given occasion its spectacular outperformance. And it sure as hell was. So we kind of had a little bit of a similar situation on ETH recently. But of course, you know, XRP had been sort of consolidating for like the better part of a decade, not as long as Ethereum, but still, the concept was the same. So I'm like, you guys, it's going to pop. And, of course, it's going to go bottom in the upside markets. There is no reason to think right now that there's going to be some reason. Now is when it finally goes to zero. It never made sense. And so Ethereum is up 92% from there, and XRP 52%. So it barely outperformed Bitcoin, anyway, for that short period. There are other coins on your screen. You can read them. So to give you, for example, a mean point, Pepe up 172%, but it's over a snapshot in time. Even if you look back to the election to the day he took office, you still come up with XRP as the one coin that has outperformed the 99 other coins in the top 100. So then it depends on how you slice and dice it, but take another period. That's kind of interesting. And I only started thinking in these terms in the first place because of that post, and I have nothing against anyone or whatever this person is. I don't know who this is, but this is the kind of content that someone who doesn't understand why the zoom function is important writes. Do you know that you are looking at the very tiny because you are only there for a credit hour? That is your comment on that. It's been a month and a half, and then whining. And so well, yes, that's true if you already have plenty of money to play the ranges, but for those of us waiting to live change wealthy life, 52% isn't enough, it reads, from someone named Zio Wolf. And so, of course, he's talking about XRP. They're just 52% above the low. Oh my god, that's a lot. Okay, well, the charting guy responded. It's up more than 700% from the lows of the cycle. Okay, keep this in mind. XRP bottomed out in June of 2022 at 28 cents, almost 3 years ago, 28 cents. So then from there, at the current price, actually I set this at a price, and I guess the moment I hit record, the price of XRP was 2.35. It is simply where it is now. It's at $2.34. But anyway, so 28 cents to $2.35, which is an increase of 739% for XRP. So, I think it does make a little bit of sense to kind of stop and smell the roses and acknowledge XRP has done that good. Well, because if you weren't in it at those lower prices, okay, fine. If you just missed it, perhaps you are new to crypto, okay, I can understand it. But why not, then, at least be hopeful for the future? Because the asset class is still tiny. The crypto asset class, any idea how small this is? $3.38 trillion. Have any idea, we are talking just the United States now, how big the stock market is? What is the market cap? It's about 60 trillion. You know what gold is? I don't know. Well, I didn't look it for recording, but I think it's, around 22 trillion. And if you look at stocks globally, I think the number, you can do a quick Google search to find the exact number, but my recollection is it's about something like $130 trillion, I believe. And here you have the crypto asset class, 3.38 trillion. Can't you just zoom out a little bit and see that having exposure over a long time frame is how you accumulate wealth? It's not the process you described that has changed my life, you see, but the fact that I was patient. It's only taken me 7.5 years, and my crypto has appreciated much more than I put into it, to the point I can comfortably tell you, it's changed my life thus far. And now I want to cash out and make the profit. But even on paper, what it's worth right now is so wild. And I don't really want to say much about it because the personal stuff's even beyond that. But you have to know that and have that knowledge. Now, if you are considering XRP from the bottom 28 cents to the top $3.40, so that was an increase of 1,114%. And when you hear a percentage increase like that, you're like, okay, I picked a winner. But some people can never truly understand. And it's not done. So you may as well consider this final cycle XRP. It went up 20 times in value. Think about that. Last cycle, in 2020 and 2021, it was under assault by the SEC and XRP. It went up 20-fold, from 10 cents to $2. That is wild. Then, putting it under attack, we can see what would happen if we had a 20x from here, where it's being attacked. Notice if you're going to go 20x from here, you're already at $5.60, which is laughably conservative in my opinion. But I absolutely think we would have had a much larger multiplier from bottom to top for XRP price last cycle if it wasn't for the SEC doing what they did. But they did what they did, naturally. In fact, like you remember, everybody and their mother were calling for double digits of price action last cycle, and it probably would have last cycle. And that would have meant 100 times. Imagine this going bottom to top, from a tenth of 10 cents to $10. That would have been a 100-fold increase. So the notion that we're at where we are today, it's not finished, this is not done. You think that XRP, with all this legal clarity, is going to do worse this cycle than it has in the other cycles. Well, no, against the dollar, clearly, it has not. But I mean just in the sense of what that percentage gain can look like. Do you really think we're anywhere near a peak? The chance for life-changing wealth is still there this cycle for so many people, incredibly so. So I want to emphasize that, and particularly with this, so I've been talking a lot about global liquidity, because it matters. And here's this post on something I was alluding to the other day by Raoul Paul. Here's the title, Daily Hodl, May 23rd, 2029 years ago today. And now for the links, new article out today. Raoul Paul's price prediction for Bitcoin is over 140K for Bitcoin by July, a key indicator flashing bullish for Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is going up to that degree, and it's doing it that quickly, do you think XRP is, on the sidelines, that has way less money in it that has to come in to move it in a double, triple, quadruple, so on and so forth? What do you think that means? And why does he believe this? Is it plausible? Can Bitcoin reach that price? Yeah, absolutely can. Check this out. Real Vision founder and macro analyst Raoul Paul says Bitcoin will go much higher in the coming weeks. In the new video by Paul, we have him telling his 236,000 YouTube subscribers that the global money supply, or global M2 measure, is closely correlated to the price of Bitcoin. The global money supply indicates that Bitcoin may rise by 28% from here. Macro guru, pic.twitter.com/GVCGV66UMF, Joseph Young, and I am Joseph Young. November 13, 2019. According to the macro guru, the global money supply suggests that Bitcoin now has a 28% chance of surging from the current price. Alright, that's why it would be silly to invest in Bitcoin if you're expecting to make life-changing wealth with it at this point. I mean, if you really believe in it and you've got like a 10, 20-year kind of outlook, then fine. It is going to wipe the stock markets, but then, okay, fine. But if you're talking about what I think most people are more interested in, that's from one cycle already to the next. Can we go to that life-changing wealth? You're not here for Bitcoin. If you're into Bitcoin, the cycle doesn't make any goddamn sense at all if you want life-changing wealth. It just doesn't. But it can make sense for altcoins. It does make sense. So that's why this is. But if it's going to get that high, my God, the money that's going to flow into the alts, that's what's exciting. And this guy, by the way, is a guy whose entire professional career is from the street of finance. He was an executive at Goldman Sachs. Then he founded Global Macro Investor, big on analytics. And what he's doing is he's presenting data and then giving an interpretation of it. And this concept isn't difficult to gauge. So here's a quote from him. And this is why I'm so freaking jacked, like XRP, for the masses that are spewing FUD, if he is right, and I believe he is more than likely right by a lot, it is going to liquefy faces. So here's the quote. But at this juncture, is the Bitcoin price more so affected by liquidity? It foresaw the correction of approximately $75,000 in April, no more than 3 months out. And yet Twitter insisted it is about tariffs. It has to do with the end of the world. I said it, it's saying it and said to you that it would be at record highs. You didn't listen when I said it would be all-time highs by May. It's telling you that by July, we should be over $140,000. Folks, do you remember? Some of you remember this. It's like the world is on fire because of tariff stuff, it's falling apart. Remember that in early April? And then I realized that I think it was maybe mid-April. I was talking. There's something I was trying to keep in mind specifically that I think the way his partner, Julian. But that was around then, though. And everything was on fire. Everybody's depressed. Oh my God, everything's good. We're going to be bear market and all that crap. I posted the correlation back then, when I was Global M2 versus Bitcoin. And I echoed their predictions that, hey, I know everyone's saying that the world's on fire, but look at the numbers. This means that Bitcoin will make a new all-time high by May. But how many people believe that as well? The feeling was just gutter. It's falling apart. You get screamed at for saying something like that. So I turned it on because it seems like something that you should listen to. And what do you know? It happened. You are surprised by that, really? And if global liquidity is rising, funds have to go somewhere. And then, the more money people have, generally speaking, the more risk appetite they're going to have. But, of course, you can have macro headwinds. There's some sort of tailwind that is buffeting us, at least for a while, analysts. So I think we had what you'd call a black swan event, I don't know. It lasted about a minute with the tariff stuff steering the markets, but that is already beyond us unless something wacky again happens. So, since that's what's happening and it does, look how correlated it is, back here to 2023. You think it's just going to, this is like the place where it stops. I don't think so, folks. But that's why we XRP holders are so freaking juiced. And if it does that, it's going to be much better for XRP. Anyway, Paul also says the price of Bitcoin will start growing more quickly than the increase in global money supply at some point before moving the other way. Quote, I know it will also decouple as we get later in the cycle, and it will decouple to the upside with Bitcoin outperforming global M2. That's how the crowd works. The herd gets FOMO, and they get greedy, and it actually starts outperforming. Then, as the market flips, it starts to enter a brief underperform as the fear side takes over. End quote. So that's the phase that's coming up next. That is the real parabolic move. We are super close to this. And if, based on liquidity, Bitcoin continues to lag in the same way it has for years now, and correlate that much, then yeah, it's like a month or two. It doesn't mean it couldn't go up earlier, of course. Because I mean, this you could see if you zoom in. If you look here in such a super short period, this doesn't correlate. But then you zoom out and you think a couple of years ago, oh, yes, it does correlate. You have at least one good eyeball, so you can see. So anyway, if that's the case, then by the next month or two, I mean, to peak anywhere near that, or beyond it really, and to really just take off beyond that, how could you not be excited to be in this space right now? To actually be here and have this opportunity is just absolutely wild. And then there was this post from Crypto Insight UK. It's the XRP BTC pair. He remarked, XRP BTC range low swept with bull divs forming. Watch closely here. We signaled about this path in advance. So we'll continue to reference this, but there are a couple of other observers out there that have been watching this currency cross in recent days. And I've said a little of that, very roughly noting. In fact, I believe it was Dark Defender who mentioned this the other day. The RSI on the XRP BTC chart was getting ready to tick upwards. That's worth noticing. I mean, just take a look at what occurred at another point quite similar to this point in the past. You know, you can see exactly what's happened here. So I'm just saying, I'm optimistic. There is no reason to be a bear here. It feels good to be optimistic, yes, but let us remember to be patient, because this does not allow us to dictate when it goes. But either we're exposed to the markets when it happens, or we're not. And I'll be goddamned if I'm going to have a hole. So this thing might be coming to a head sooner rather than later. I keep hearing that from all kinds of analysts. Here's a post from X-Force Global. XRP, $4 by midsummer will not surprise me one bit. Okay, and just to be clear, he doesn't think it's topping at $4. He's referring to partying getting started. He's mentioned multiple times, going to double digits with this XRP, and that's a very common expectation with XRP chart analysts. Here's another example. Chart analyst Crypto Tony. XRP USD update. I remain long over $2. XRP $5 this cycle will be nice. Now, once again around him, he's saying wouldn't it be sweet if XRP were $5? Oh, I agree, but he doesn't think the demands will end there. He actually made other posts, one just a month ago, saying it was going to peak around $10. And who knows, perhaps that'd be conservative, but it will be one hell of a ride on the way up. Let me show you this thing. It's from Rakesh Ubeda, who writes for Cointelegraph. I simply want to summarize a few key points. He believes there are a couple of important ways. It sort of all depends where we are, fork in the road style, but a break and close higher than 2.65 would complete a very lopsided bullish INVHNS, target equals 3.70, he added. So that'd be the short term. And you mentioned price discovery there, because that's another new all-time high this year. And so many analysts have been talking about that $2.65 level. There's something to it. Too many analysts have told me that it is so, for it not to matter. Maybe thin air above, right? But now, he says, if it breaks lower than $2, well, then sure, you can see other lower price levels. But there's virtually no analyst I follow who thinks that's remotely likely, right? So if that's happening, then something else larger is going on, probably in the crypto asset class more broadly. So yes, this is a time for excitement. So yeah, we've already been up over 1,100 this cycle from the bottom to the top for XRP. Ain't done. The best is yet ahead. If it got to double digits, and XRP for this cycle, that wouldn't be impossible. And maybe the folks who are up into that $20 to $30 range, they'll be right. We will see together. I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing I say or write should be taken as a reason to buy or sell anything. That would be an extremely, extremely, extremely bad idea. Until then, on to the XRP Insider.